Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Monday now, the 29th day of January 2024. The month is almost over. Then we roll into February, and we're going to start the month of February with a pretty busy pattern as a pretty active, what we call Pineapple Express or atmospheric river. One after the other coming into the western U.S., an active southern storm track. But the good news so far, not much in the way of severe weather, that is to say, no big thunderstorms, no big hail events, and no big tornado outbreaks coming. I think we're going to have to deal with that. That just makes sense, especially in March and beyond. We would have to kind of worry about that anyway, but not in the near future. But as the thumbnail map shows you there, we got a system in California that's going to be coming in, one after the other, and then something going across the southern tier of the country that might produce a very interesting weather system, storm, whatever you want to call it, later on. So we'll look at all of this, plus some stuff related to the tropics, and then I guess a new segment, if you want to call it that. It's not like this is a podcast or anything. I guess it could be, but I'm going to call it Interesting Tweets. That'll just be at the end of these updates, especially these off-season updates when we don't have a lot of important hurricane news to talk about. So we'll look at some interesting tweets here to round things out on this beautiful Monday here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I am. It is nice. A little chilly out there, but full sunshine, so that makes it nice. And in fact, most of the lower 48 is pretty inactive right now in terms of major weather problems. In the Pacific Northwest, we do have a few major weather problems, depending on how you look at it, as the active pattern with this sort of Pineapple Express coming in, atmospheric river, whatever label you want to call it. It works for me if it works for you. So yes, we do have some inclement weather, even some avalanche problems out here. I think that's avalanche. It wouldn't be freezing spray. It's got to be, see, there's freezing spray, almost the same color as avalanche warning. But yeah, up in northwest Montana, periods of fog, and then, yes, the avalanche warning right up there in the northwest portion of Montana, including parts of Kalispell region. I've never been there. It'd probably be pretty neat to go there. But going back to the main map, yes, most of the lower 48 pretty clear of major active weather. So if you've got to fly or drive or whatever, maybe you're a trucker and you're using the interstate system to get goods and services to point A, point B, point C, and beyond, not a bad couple of days to do so. But things are going to change starting out here as more of that energy comes in to the west coast. And we can see that just starting to knock on the door out here in the Pacific Ocean. There's some of that inclement weather coming into the Pacific Northwest proper, but there's a lot of energy sitting over the Northeast Pacific, driven in part by the El Nino phenomenon down in the tropical Pacific, and that's going to bring a pretty steady stream of storms, one after the other, over the next several days. And like I said, maybe, just maybe, something that tries to wind up down here. And a lot of people are kind of hoping, I guess, that something turns the corner and gives us a big winter storm. Just not a lot of cold air around. We'll get to that as we progress here. Sea surface temperature anomalies. These are very important to understand a lot of what's going on with the global weather patterns. There's our El Nino, the warmer than normal equatorial Pacific. This will be fading, but we do have a period now coming up of some pretty strong westerly wind action in here, what we call a westerly wind burst. Westerly meaning from the west, and that's going to help to reinforce this just a little bit. But the El Nino is on borrowed time. It's going to fade away as we get towards the spring and summer. Meanwhile, the very warm Atlantic, Caribbean, and elsewhere still holding strong. That will influence the upcoming hurricane season, still 4 months plus away, so we don't have to worry about that right now. In the Gulf of Mexico, remember, these are anomalies, departures from the long-term average, which is, about a 30-year running average right now, I believe. The Gulf, generally warmer than average, but not alarmingly so. So, everything's pretty much where we thought it would be. I'm not seeing any surprises right now. Maybe the demise of the El Nino is going to happen a little bit quicker than I thought. Although, like I said, I'll show you some tweets about it in just a minute. And yes, I know it's called something else, but to me, it's always Twitter. And anyway, the El Nino probably going to have a little bit of it's going to try to make a comeback, and then it's going to still lose, kind of like some of these NFL teams this weekend, but we won't talk about that. Anyway, here's the example of what I'm talking about. The SOI was doing really well, and then it's kind of leveled out again, and the positive SOI typically means you're not in an El Nino pattern where the atmosphere and the ocean are sort of coupled up, so to speak. Now we've got a little bit of a dip in the SOI in the 30 and the 90-day. Draw the arrow there, Mark. And you can see it in the data over here. Today's contributor, minus 16, so that's a pretty big dip there. The 90-day is at minus 2, and the 30-day still positive, and that's really, really important. We will end the month of January with positive numbers in the SOI, and that is indicating that we are gradually pulling out of this El Nino pattern overall. The whole background state is gradually changing, but as I'm going to show you in the interesting tweets section, there is some information from our friend Ben Knoll that further explains this. But yes, the SOI on its way up, and then a little bit of a dip right now, and that will lead to, it's all connected, this westerly wind burst that we're seeing starting now. This is what we call a Hofmoeller diagram, and this just helps us to understand the zonal wind anomalies. And this is about 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, and you're looking at your longitude here, right? And if you know how to read this map, it's not a map, it's more of a chart, right? It's really fascinating to be able to understand what you're looking at. Basically, the blues are strong easterly winds, and the reds are strong westerly winds. Strong relative to what? Well, that's what an anomaly is. So relative to the average, you get stronger westerlies on the right-hand side, or reds and ultimately pinks, and then strong easterly winds all the way to the pink and purples on the left side of the scale. So right now, the tropical Pacific, and it's pretty far to the west now overall, especially these strong anomalies, showing some westerly wind burst action. Again, that helps to solidify the El Nino and let it hold on for dear life just a little bit longer. So this is the current time frame right now. See, it says begin the GFS operational forecast, and this is just one tool. This is over at Dr. Michael Ventress' website, and the GFS indicating more westerly wind action later in February towards the mid part of the month. But again, these are your longitude lines. There's the date line, and there's 120 degrees east longitude, there's 120 west longitude, and there's 60 west. So these are way, way over in the Pacific, not ideally focused to keep the El Nino going and going and going, and we don't see that in any of the models. All the guidance here, this is from the International Research Institute, part of the Climate Prediction Center, and their work at Columbia University. And here you go. Most of the models here, the dynamical, right there, and the statistical models, they're all agreeing. See, you don't have any of them that are up here like this, and then there's a bunch down here. We don't have divergence. It is a very tightly clustered overall package of guidance here that says El Nino will be on the downtrend as we head through the next few months and into the summer. With the peak here, August, September, October, peak of hurricane season, generally speaking, most of the model guidance suggesting that we will not be in El Nino. So maybe cool neutral, warm neutral, something like that, while the Atlantic should stay pretty warm overall. And that's something we'll look at more and more as we go forward. This will be important. This is only January now. Let's see what this says in certainly February, March, and April really starts to get interesting. And then we're going to get some guidance coming out in March and April that looks into the future of the hurricane season with stuff like the super blend of the UK Met, the Euro, things like that, right? From Ben Knoll. You know, if you've been watching my videos, you know what's coming, but we're not there yet. Anyway, in sort of a beginning of interesting tweets here, I thought, or we can call them posts. That's fine. But this should still be a bird in my mind, but that's okay, whatever. I can hold on to it for nostalgic reasons, if anything else, right? So this interesting post here from TAF B, that is the Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch, this is yesterday, but I wanted to show you because this is pretty cool. Let's highlight it in red, shall we? First, big plume of Saharan dust, and if this was in hurricane season, everybody would be saying, well, there it is, it's canceled, nothing's going to happen, all that Sal out there. Well, guess what? We do get Saharan air layer outbreaks even when it's not hurricane season. And look at that edge there, that very sharp edge. This, again, is yesterday, but that's pretty neat to see. Lots of sand and dust and whatnot, maybe even locusts. Seriously, they do. Cape Verde Islands, or Cabo Verde Islands, they do. They get locusts falling from the sky. It's not legendary. It's true. Now, I've never seen it in person, but I've read the stories from fishermen, and it goes back hundreds of years. But anyway, lots of particulate matter in the eastern Atlantic. And then what is that little doodad? Well, if we scroll up, we can see, actually I got to go back to the main TAFB page. There it is, a nice close-up. Again, this is yesterday. They call it a screaming eagle because it kind of looks like an eagle's head, I guess, you know, and it looks more like a tropical wave to me, certainly. And I asked Brent over here in the Virgin Islands, hey, you getting any rain from this? I guess it's probably too far away. But locally, if you were sailing, shipping, or whatever around it, there could have been some heavy showers and gusty winds with this feature. And they even say that it is similar to a tropical wave. Already in January, not quite a tropical wave, but just a disturbance out there in the Atlantic. All right, before we get to the, well, we got a couple of tabs here for interesting posts. Let's look at the GFS. I said that it was going to be hey, it's in the thumbnail, an active start to February. So today, though, as I showed you, for the most part, not much happening. If we just look at the GFS here, the operational, and that's what this is the operational run. You've got ensembles, which is like asking a whole bunch of different people what their opinions are about something. It's kind of an okay metaphor for that. And then you have your operationals, and you got the GFS, the Euro, the Canadian. There's a bunch of them. Anyway, you probably already know all this, but I'm going to show you the GFS operational. I like how the depiction is here at Tropical Tidbits because you can see the weather features, green, and then the various shades of green up to yellows and reds as precip in unfrozen form, so liquid, and then the blues, that will be your frozen precip, right? And then sometimes you have in between, freezing rain, sleet, and that kind of thing. So let's just run this out over the next week and see what happens, and then we'll take the clock back and try to dissect everything. So a couple of storms come in. There's the one out west. Very, very heavy snow in the Sierra. Telling you, I'm jonesing for that. I'm like, can I go out there? I'd love to see it. I like to sit in Tahoe or Truckee and just watch that come down. It's really amazing to see, and they need it. They really do. They can take all the moisture they can get, really. And then it gets into the Intermountain West, the Rockies, elsewhere, Arizona's mountains. Look at that. Even Flagstaff, north of Phoenix area, some of those mountains. Sedona might see some snow. Certainly parts of New Mexico. And then Colorado. Now, this is going to be interesting. Does the Front Range, which really gets lit up there, get that upslope on that low pressure? And if it's far enough south and there's enough moisture being flung around, this is one of those situations where Denver and areas like that, Colorado Springs, up the I-25 corridor, they could get hammered. And this is later in the week here, towards the weekend, and it's something I'm looking at. Might get on a plane Friday, Thursday, something like that, and go out there, report on it, be in it. It's just neat, the kid and me. Yes, I love a good snowstorm. And out there, you can really get walloped, and there's usually not a big signal days and days and days in advance, because that area of the country, kind of a microclimate out there with those big walls of mountains called the Rockies, it makes things very interesting and difficult to pin down. You think hurricanes are hard to forecast. Denver snow forecasting, good luck with that, because until it's pretty much right on you, it's hard to get a good signal way out in time. And this is 5 days away. That could end up being nothing, or it could be a big-time event. It's all about where the low is, the moisture fetch, and all that. We will be watching closely. But all that starts to head east, that energy, and then maybe there could be something quite interesting trying to develop in my neck of the woods. This is why I'm a little hesitant to go out there, and then I can't get back here for that. That's like right over my house. And look at all those isobars in there. That is a heck of a storm trying to wind up, and that could lead to some coastal flooding and so forth. And, you know, you don't want to ignore your own backyard. Now, the key to whether or not this ends up being a big snow event, we got to have more Arctic air coming down up here. There's just not enough deep, cold air. It's very shallow, and we don't have any kind of a low sitting up here as well, kind of funneling that cold air in this way. So I don't know. I mean, there's still time. This is more than a week out, and that's really important to note. So this could either be a real big deal for ice and snow or a big wind machine. It could still have time to come up the coast. Right now it's kind of suppressed. But it could, turn the corner if we can get some more blocking out here, so to speak, and then it can turn that corner. We're just going to have to wait and see. But look, even at day 8 here, that's where I want to stop, more of the action coming in out west. So February likely to be pretty busy, on and on as these impulses come in off the Pacific, translate that energy into parts of the plains, east of the Rockies, and then we're off to the races. And then it's just going to be a matter of how much cold air do we have if you're looking for a big snow event. But luckily, like I said, and this is reflected here, good way to segue into this, no major storm problems from convective activity, no thunderstorms to speak of over the next several days. Now this could change, because I'm only doing these updates once a week right now, really. But yeah, this could change, but right now days 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, nothing triggering anything from the Storm Prediction Center. All right, now on to interesting posts. I need like a little intro, whatever they call that, a stab or whatever in the industry. Like a little flying in graphic. Interesting posts, tweets, whatever you want to call them. This is really related to what I was talking about earlier about the SOI and this westerly wind burst. I did find this interesting, so that's why I'm showing it to you. Climate followers, as Ben Knoll says, a significant westerly wind event is unfolding over the central tropical Pacific. I like that little, tiny little emoji there, somebody trying to blow the wind out. That's cute. This will give the atmosphere. They need to do like a Chris Farley, the I am El Nino. That would be a great. Can you turn people into emojis? Anyway, this will give the atmosphere an El Nino-like jolt during February. El Nino's decay will then likely hasten in March. And that's what I was showing you. It's a little delayed right now, but it'll quickly pick up the pace as we get to March. And he makes an important point here, does Ben Knoll. The imprint of strong ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation, events can have a lengthy lag. And, that's also true in economics. If you ever listen to shows like Marketplace from NPR, these long and variable lags or whatever they call it when it relates to the economy. And the same thing in weather. It's funny how sports, news, and weather are all on television, and they are all related for more than just informational purposes. Statistics and how we look at things, yes, even in the atmosphere, things can have a lag. You do the bullwhip, and it takes time for that energy to go through the rope, so to speak. Same thing in the atmosphere. So the El Nino, and a significant one at that, will have these lags that take a while to work out of the system. But as I showed you, remember back earlier in the video, the SOI, generally a true barometer of how the pressure pattern is setting up in the tropical Pacific, is showing us that we are headed towards, and Ben mentions it here, the hastening of the demise of El Nino as we get to March. All right? Now, going back to this one more time, all that wetness over here, just a gentle reminder for you, QuickDam, one of our partners, unbelievable, they just amazing stuff, and I'm going to tell you a true story. I did not film it because I felt like it was just a little, well, let me tell you the story. Our sink, we got the 2 double sinks in the kitchen, was clogged up the other day. Somebody put too much mac and cheese in there or something in the disposal. And you know how at least my pipes, it goes down and it's got that little C-shaped deal or U-shape at the bottom in the plumbing underneath the sink. Well, it was all clogged up. And I couldn't get the plunger to work. I wasn't going to start dumping all kinds of acid or whatever in there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to unscrew these plastic pipe things and take that little U-shaped deal out. You could tell I don't know the terminology. And I figured there was just too much gunk in there, right? And I knew that there was water still in the system even after I siphoned all the water out of the clogged up sinks. So I grabbed one of my QuickDam units sitting right over here, box right over here. Took it down, set it up under the sink, pulled that thing out. All that water came out, fell into the QuickDam, and it absorbed every last drop. And now, why I didn't film it or whatever, let me show you. It had a lot of food and stuff. Kind of looked like somebody, it was like, that's not good. But it worked. And then I was able to just roll all that gunk and the water in the QuickDam, put it in the garbage bag, out it goes. Incredible. So this is a video that they've done. That's a real life example, showing how easy it is to do this. It's not just for flooding, like you see there from Mother Nature. It's from stuff in your house, overflowed toilets, bathtubs. I'm telling you, this company, they're up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I visited with them last summer. I'm going to see them again in a few months, and we're going to be talking about some amazing stuff for 2024. It's just amazing. So I'm going to put a link to this and their YouTube video itself. Get me out of the way. In today's description, what a wonderful partner to have. More than just someone financially supporting my projects, a terrific innovator, and they're right here in our own country up in the Northeast, where it has been very wet in the last few months, like 300% of normal, even up there in their neck of the woods, Massachusetts and Rhode Island and vicinity. So check them out. QuickDams, they're available Home Depot, Lowe's, other big box, Amazon, and even internationally over in the UK. Go to their website to learn more. Again, let's stop the music there so I can exit gracefully. All right. So now that my sink's working, and I was even very proud of it. I texted my wife. I was like, I fixed the sink, and it actually wasn't that hard. So I shouldn't pat myself on the back too hard. You just got to be smart. You take the pipe out, you unclog it, and you're good to go. But you got to do something with all that water, and I was able to successfully trap it. All right? So there you go. That's what we're looking at as we end the first month of the year, and what a month it has been on every level imaginable, from the weather to everything else. And you already know what I'm talking about, that we don't do that here. We're just weather, right? But boy, hey, news, sports, and weather. There you go. I got the weather part covered. Everything else, we won't even worry about it. But now we're starting the second month pretty soon, and as I showed you, I think it's going to be pretty active. All right, so have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the quiet while you got it, because it's getting ready to change. And I'll be back next Monday, presumably, and certainly if it's not Monday, some other day next week, and we'll keep talking about what's happening next, all right? From all of us at Hurricane Track, thanks for tuning in. I'm Mark Sudduth. We'll talk to you again, hopefully, next Monday.